These are your genetic results for stress fracture and bone fractures. This genetic test is one of our strongest genetic tests for three reasons. First, this genetic test is particularly informative, as I'll explain below. Second, fractures, and stress fractures in particular, are common for athletes, especially endurance athletes. And third, bone stress injuries, or stress fractures, are avoidable with certain modifications to your training regimen. So in this page, you can see that this person's score had a BOG score of minus 1.3. Now, BOG stands for bone mineral density, osteoporosis, genetic score. And that's made from your data on many different DNA polymorphisms throughout your genome, plus your height, weight, age, and sex that you told us when you signed up. And together, all these little effects from the many different polymorphisms add up to a fairly strong prediction about what your bone mineral density and your chance for bone fractures are. This number is minus 1.3 is given in T-score units, which is the unit that your bone mineral density is measured in. Now, a BOG score of minus 1.3 indicates a 63% increased risk for all types of fractures. This was measured in 50,000 civilians for any type of bone fracture. And right now we are doing research to look for their chance of fracture for athletes, and especially stress fracture. Of everybody we tested, this score is amongst the worst we've seen. So only 4.9% of people have a score equal or lower than this. And this graph gives you an interactive way to look at your score. So you're the dot. And on the average, people in this bin had a BOG score of minus 1.43, but you had a score that wasn't quite the average for this. It was a little bit, it was minus 1.3, not minus 1.43. The fracture rate for people in this bin is 63%, and this bin and the bin below it, there's only 5% of people in these two, so it's the 5th percentile. So you see the BOG score on the x-axis and your chance for fracture on the y-axis. These gray bars are the bin sizes. So in here there were 2% of people, and in here there were another 2% of people, and so here there is a total of actually 5% of people in the bottom two bins. Now, if you were to have a score over here and be in the worst case scenario bin, then your BOG score on the average is minus 1.7, and the fracture rate for these people is 85% increased fracture rate. Way over here, we switch into the green area where you have decreased risk for low bone mineral density and fractures. So here your BOG score is plus 0.99 and your fracture rate is minus, so you have 28% fewer fractures than the civilians that we tested to generate this algorithm. The bottom graph shows the same thing, but for the observed bone mineral density. And so you can look at then and see that the prediction, called the BOG score, that's our genetic prediction, predicted that you would have a score of minus 1.31. And for people in this bin, the actual score was minus 1.25 on the average. So fairly close agreement. And there's 7% of people in this third bin or lower. I can tell you that the correlation between this BOG score, the genetic score, and the observed bone mineral density is pretty high. It's 50%. So amongst all genetic tests, a correlation of 50% is pretty high. So for example, it's currently better than your ability to predict body mass index or heart disease or something like that. For information as to who has low bone mineral density versus something else, like who's going to get breast cancer, this BOG score is actually more informative than BRCA2 testing, which is the genetic test for breast cancer. And if low bone mineral density is a disease to be avoided, then this BOG score is about as informative as smoking is for lung cancer. So to give you an estimate about how informative this is, it's like smoking and it's like BRCA2 testing, two tests that are well accepted for their outcomes and diseases. Now, to learn more about stress fractures, I recommend you read the introduction section, and to learn how to increase your resilience against stress fractures, you can read this rehabilitation section. Figure Legends helps define what all of these terms, this fracture rate and the BOG score, mean. And a FAQ is our list of frequently asked questions on this page. So if you have other questions, you can go to this FAQ. And if this doesn't answer it, feel free to contact us at contact@axgen.us. And we'll try to answer your question. Thank you, and remember to train smart so you can play hard.